Future of the child online safety. It's a very important topic for discussion. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Digital Development was unable to attend the last session of the day, but they submitted their bullets to us. But we have with us Alexander Tolmachov, Deputy Chair of the State Duma Committee for Youth Policy. Well, he is joining us shortly. He will enter this conference hall shortly. Sergey Kalinin, first deputy head of the Directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Anton Raspashnov, who also represents the Ministry of Internal Affairs and specializes in online crime combating and prevention. Olga Bochkova, founder and head of the Olga Bochkova Security Academy, child and adolescent psychotherapist. Olga, please take your seat in the panel. Sergey Maklakov, NPO Regions. Dmitry Kishilov, director of the Additional Products Business Unit Megaphone, and Natalia Yamatova, director of Trust and Security, Avito. So without further ado, we'll start discussing the child online safety. The risks, the online risks, change all the time. Recruitment was the risk of the past. Now it's droppers, phishing, and various AI-based products that have a negative impact on the kids. My first question goes to Alexander Tolmachov. What lawmaking should look like so that it prevents online risks, so that we are more proactive to responding to them? How do we prevent risks? How do we mitigate them? Thank you so much for the question. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank everyone for being here to discuss this very important topic. Working with kids is not just about conscientious children. We're talking about problems such as aggression, addictions, destructive behavior in a very general sense of the word. We have a task force on combating destructive behavior. And by the way, Alexander is a very active participant in this task force. Thank you so much for that. One of our main objectives is to identify the reasons for criminal behavior of children and teenagers, and we want to minimize the problem, if not to solve it. Last year, for the first time, we've seen an increase in crime rates among children, plus 10%. The growth rates were detected throughout the year. And in early 2026, we managed to stabilize the situation. The number of crimes committed by teenagers went down by almost 10%. But the goal was to identify the primary reasons for committing crimes, and that includes serious crimes. When we try to identify the root causes, we realized that there were two main reasons for committing crimes. They can be impacted by third parties. For instance, they could be recruited, they could be scared to death, or they could be lied to, or they are just willing to make quick money. To address the question that you asked me, as for the system that we use to nurture children, it aims to prevent destructive behavior, develop critical thinking, focus on the positive behavior patterns, and the higher digital literacy among children and youth is, the more aware they are about the threats and the ways to combat them, the more ready they are going to be to future threats. Unfortunately, the digital literacy levels go down while the criminals become more sophisticated. And the Youth Policy Committee developed a system for preventing cyber crimes. The federal law on crime prevention has a standalone domain focusing on terrorism, extremism, and drug trafficking. There are federal and regional programs that are part of this workstream. And cyber crimes are not covered by this list, despite the fact that every third illegal activity done by teenagers involves digital technologies. And our bill will bridge this gap. This bill has already passed, and if we will the nationals about the outcomes of the crime prevention programs. However, is ours. And of course, we want to engage all interested stakeholders. We also want to scale up crime prevention and that will help senior citizens, potential homeowners, and brief them what developers are all about. We help the networks operators. We can more actively in more a greater target audience. As far as prevention is concerned, prevention can be split into two domains. Prevention that aims to prevent destructive behavior, and the prevention focusing on those who are already involved in the negative actions. In a latter case, we try to resocialize these the kids to prevent follow-up crimes. The committee also developed a bill that aims to shift from the response to a crime or destructive behavior to prevention. We will prevent at early stages involvement of kids in the destructive behavior. The logic is quite simple. 1 ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And it's worth mentioning that violence can be prevented if you know the root causes. Uh, Adolescent aggression almost never happens all of a sudden. It is preceded by a long chain of events that and signals that can be discerned if you pay close attention. And the objective of our bill is to increase awareness and attention toward kids. And if you identify destructive behavior signs, then prevention should be offered to them. And that includes involving psychologists and social rehab. Naturally, this is not an exhaustive list of the initiatives that our committee developed. For instance, we developed a bill of focusing on mentorship for homeless teenagers. We also try to prevent advertisements of online casinos. We have approved a law on creating the movement of the pioneers, and all these issues are very relevant, and they have a negative impact on the most valuable thing we have, and that's our kids. And I believe that our initiatives will considerably reduce the impact of the destructive factors. And what's even more important, it will ensure a resistance to crime. However, it takes your support and your expert opinion. We are prepared to engage in a very constructive dialogue. We hope that you will deep dive into our initiatives and discuss the upcoming challenges. Thank you so much for your attention, and I really hope to get answers to the questions that are a problem for the lawmakers. I really hope that joint solutions will help us prevent involvement of our kids in destructive activities. Thank you so much. Indeed, the committee is quite active, and I really hope that today we will be able to come up with some relevant solutions. My next question goes to Sergey. Sergey, I was just wondering, what kind of cyber threats are of paramount importance as far as kids are concerned? How come kids are engaged and become parties to online crimes? Before I take this question, let me offer a comment on the previous, it's a follow-up on the previous speaker. Of course, I wanted to raise the issue of the necessity to introduce these amendments. As far as the practice is concerned, in the past few years, we've been focusing on prevention primarily. And let me share with you my personal experience. One of the main problems is that we don't have a coordination center. Let me give you the following example. a couple of years ago, the Moscow government supported our initiative to develop a single brand which was called Simple and Safe. And it's just a list of basic things like if you don't know what it is, don't touch it. We wanted to display the same social advertisements in the subway. However, a slightly different department is responsible for the subway, and they said, well, the Prosecutor General's office already works with us on that. So we want to increase the literacy, right? We want everyone to speak Russian properly. But if we just keep stating the rules, I don't think the spelling rules, I don't think people will be able to speak better Russian. If everyone talks about the same things, we don't cover as wide an audience as possible. Sorry for going at a tangent. So like I said, indeed, it's a headache. Everyone focuses on prevention. That includes civil organizations, the Ministry of Digital Development, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Federal Security Service. They have their funds, they have their programs. So basically, well, we need to coordinate our efforts and activities. So that would facilitate husbanding resources, reducing the costs. And what's even more important, we would eliminate redundancy, and we would be able to cover all the domains and drive the message home to the Russian nationals and children. And if I may, I'd like to go over a number of bullets pertaining to the second part of your question. You asked me about the reasons for the youth engaged in online crimes. Well, our experience shows that the youth is involved because for a very simple reason. The entry barrier has been going down over the years. And for instance, 2 decades ago, when we investigated murders and stuff like that, we saw that the entry barrier was quite high. You had to be an experienced criminal to become part of the criminal world. Right now, the entry barrier is very low. It's easy to negotiate, and that is why the age of children involved and engaged in illegal activities is going down. So let's say an average age of a criminal is now 20 or even 30 years less than it used to be in the past. But in the past, people were experienced. They were people of the world. They knew what the criminal code was all about. But what we have now is that the online criminals don't know the difference between the administrative code and the criminal code. Your first part of the question was about threats, right? Well, the why is probably the second part. I almost answered that, and the first part of the question was about the primary threats, right? Anyway, these are the crimes punishable by criminal liability. First and foremost, these are serious crimes, and the consequences are also serious. And naturally, these consequences are harder for kids. Unfortunately, we cannot but respond to crimes committed even if a criminal is underage. However, we do understand that for them, the fallout is harder because that's probably the end of their career or the end of their professional life in general. It's inevitable. So the scariest part is just that. And to be more specific, one of the problems that we have faced, uh, we try to prevent leasing accounts. Now we have administrative liability for leasing your personal account and a criminal liability for corporate leasing of accounts. most of the channels for leasing personal accounts, well, we're talking about 25 to 2600 channels that are abused. We try to combat them, and 110 to 120,000 underage children are engaged in illegal transfer of accounts. It turns out that oftentimes they are 17 or even as low as 14 years of age, which is scary. And just think about it. The notorious call centers, I'm not going to name the locations where they're based at, but all these call centers operate because the infrastructure, the communications infrastructure is based in Russia, and unfortunately, underage kids are involved. Unfortunately, they become accomplices to these crimes, and these crimes might not inflict high personal damage, though oftentimes they can take out a loan using your personal data or even sell your apartment. But nevertheless, hundreds of thousands of crimes are committed by the youngsters. I'm out of time, right? Well, actually, you shared very useful things with us. Let's move on to our next panelist. Anton, I was just wondering, what new forms of destructive content do you see, and why are they of concern? Thank you for the question. You know, answering this question, I'd like to highlight that per se, there are no emerging destructive destructive patterns or destructive content. They've been studied well enough. We have a list of them, and once upon the time, the perpetrators would abuse the geopolitical situation, and they started using certain patterns more actively. So, as of today, for instance, they use manipulative, destructive content. It's probably the most relevant and of the most concern. They try to actively involve our children in illegal activities, starting from participation in various scams, in dropper schemes, drug trafficking, misinformation, and false messages about terror attacks, and up to terrorist attacks and various sabotage activities, which is said. And the reason for that is quite clear. The lack of critical thinking or very low level of critical thinking. Digital hygiene would be another reason, the lack of competences or an insufficient level of digital literacy. These are the main factors. As for other forms which are of relevance as of today, they include propaganda of extremism, terrorism, violence, content on self-harm infliction, for instance, various suicide groups, depression. They discuss stuff like depression, suicide, school shootings. It's another relevant work stream for us. Another example of such content would be anything unethical. For instance, propaganda of child-free, anti-family, LGBTQ propaganda. And last but not least, propaganda of various dangerous hobbies. For instance, dangerous quests. And if kids go to take part in such dangerous quests, they can be subjected to harm, especially when they try to ride electric trains. Indeed, there are lots of challenges and threats, and they transform all the time. Let me add to that. I believe that one of the pain points is that AI is used to drive the message home and drive the content to the kids. Neural networks and generative AI can be abused by the perpetrators to generate uh, destructive content, and the kids can no longer discern between the real and the AI generated content. And such content is used by the perpetrators to manipulate children, to involve them in illegal activities. I totally agree with you. One of the primary tasks for us is to write a white book on AI for kids. We have just embarked on this journey, and there are lots of psychological specifics that we have to take into account. Brain neurons will have to be taken into account. My next question goes to Olga. Olga, what psychological risks are underappreciated by the parents, and how do you think they will transform as the digital technologies evolve? Can I get a clicker? How do I advance my slides? Thank you for the question. Well, my academia that has been running for 9 years is basically a training center, and we teach kids on safe behavior. We talk a lot about prevention, and we do not react to a situation. We talk about daily activities, things that should be done every day, and we incentivize parents to prevent various behavioral patterns. They tend to say, well, my child is not interested in that. He or she has never come across that. I think it's too premature to talk to my child about this. I believe that this is the most important risk: underestimation, underappreciation of threats, underappreciation of preventive activities. Parents tend to react rather than to prevent threats, and this is what my presentation is going to be about. Well, I already introduced myself, so I'm gonna skip this slide. The training center offers various forms of education programs for kids and their parents alike, both face-to-face and online. However, not a single format of communicating with the children will replace a face-to-face meeting with the child to uh, work through the guidelines. We can be talking about the importance of prevention. We can brief the adults on how to prevent behavioral patterns. Unless you do this with a child in a context, at a face-to-face meeting, you're not going to succeed. As for main approaches, I'm going to save the time, so I'm going to pick at my notes. We analyze various technological trends and behavioral patterns rather than use a crystal ball. For instance, we know that AI is used to identify early threats. Opinion polls is another tool. For instance, Olga Bachkova Academy recently ran a poll on the scale of violence facing young adults. And it turns out that 78% of the young adults faced one or other form of violence. So we need to not just take stock, but also analyze the trends. Last year, 25% of high school kids believe that cyberbullying was normal. Now it's 35%, which means that the trend is going to aggravate. So that requires interagency cooperation, not just involvement of parents. A child is the ultimate user of digital content, and they see them faster, they see the trends faster, they respond to them faster. So we need to take into account their experience to be able to predict what's going to happen in the future. We need to take into account the best practices, the international practices. It's nothing new that Australia was the first country to approve a law on banning social media for kids under 16. Prediction is a tool that should be used at every single stage, and a parent is the very first person who a child is ready to open up to. It's a parent who sees the changes in his or her kid, and that's why they need a toolbox. For instance, if they see that a kid is trying to hide his or her phone, what's happening? The motivation has changed. We need to be able to understand the key criteria to see that something is wrong, because a parent is the very first person who should be able to predict something. Parental control, and I'm talking about technical tools and non-technical tools. It's not just a criteria to, curb the freedom of action or to monitor. Let's say you have parental control on the child's smartphone, and you see that he or she is interested in something that you believe to be dangerous. What parents usually do, they just ban or they punish their kids. But kids are interested in something not because they are bad. Uh, we need to engage them in an open dialogue. In teaching parents to conduct an open dialogue, by the way, we have a training program which is called Non-Kid Problems. We should engage children in an open dialogue, and if they are comfortable in sharing their experience with parents, they will be able to share information on bullying, including cyberbullying. School is another place where children spend much time at. Therefore, high school teachers should also use criteria to assess the behavior of a child, whether a child is engaged in illegal activities or is facing cyberbullying or just physical bullying. Our research shows that children face bullying at school. And we're not talking about peers, but also bullying coming from teachers. Teachers might not be a small portion of the school population, but who does a child turn for help to? It's the teacher, right? Because that's the most obvious choice. However, only in 9.5% of cases, children go to teachers. 9.5, which is low, which means that we need to make schools a safe environment for children. And experts, that's the last bullet. I'm going to refer to our research because the results were published in late March. So I'm going to use the data to emphasize the relevance and importance. If a child faces one problem, it's highly likely that a child has already faced another one. Oftentimes, children face two or more types of violence. Every ninth girl and every 13th boy face four or more types of violence, which means that we need to have a system to assess. We need a questionnaire to question a child about the types of violence they face. As for the challenges that we all face, if we run opinion polls, we get much data, and this is a must to be able to identify trends. But we have to be careful about data leakage. Naturally, we use AI to predict risks, but it's an algorithm, it's just a computer. And of course, the threat assessment should not be formalistic, which means that a human should double check the conclusions of a computer. A digital divide is still a problem. Information access is a problem. So we have to make sure that not just in large cities, but in smaller towns, everyone has access to information on prevention.
It's important not only to analyze. We are currently in a situation when there is a threat, we start to analyzing it first, and the time changes so fast that a new threat has already emerged and we haven't yet dealt with the previous one. We have to be flexible ourselves. Let me repeat one more time. Family is the main source of prevention. You have to teach parents to talk to their children without threatening them, to speak calmly. There should be training programs for parents on how to hold the discussions with the child, how to help the child. The teachers also need to undergo those trainings to maintain the safe environment. And not only digital competency lessons should be included into these trainings, but also we need to teach children critical thinking, not only not to follow certain links, but not to fall victims to manipulations that are very difficult to identify. Like recruitment, children are not stupid when we explain to them a certain scenario that engages the child, establishes trust, what kind of manipulations are possible at this stage. Children understand and they can explain method of manipulation when answering our questions. And then the society should work in a systemic fashion, work together, work systematically. It's not enough to work on a case-by-case basis. There should be systemic work with the parents, with the whole community of parents. Future is in partnerships and systemic work. So you can't have really one, two priorities. As soon as you lose one piece of this puzzle, immediately the whole picture fails. So that's the future, and we will be able to better forecast and respond to the threats if we cooperate. A digital inoculation should probably be developed for the whole society for the society to develop immunity to cyber threats. Can we teach children to understand manipulation online and what changes in terms of risk for their children in the times of e-content? Thank you very much for the question. It is indeed an important one. Many appropriate things have already been brought up, and statistics and examples that colleagues from the Department to Fight Cybercrime quoted. The very fact of manipulative involvement of teenagers into destructive activity and the impact destructive content has on children is usually prone with tragedy. These things happen in life routine that is disrupted by manipulation, and the consequences usually are quite dramatic. To understand whether these skills can be taught, we must teach them. I need to start from a slightly different perspective. Every quarter, we collect sociological data. And according to the statistics, 64% of the users claim, and that's in the Russian internet, they claim that they are able to differentiate between true and fake information. And from the same sample, 64% of the users said that there were cases when they fell victim at least once to fake information, and one third was victims of fraudsters, were victims of fraudsters or those who spread misinformation. So the main implication of this data is that the main threat is overconfidence of users. People can be overconfident in terms of their critical thinking skills and media competency skills, and this is relevant to all age groups, but especially it is predominant in children and teenagers. They believe that they understand social media, understand how internet works, and all users, especially children, thus become vulnerable to fraudsters and manipulators. The number of fakes is growing. In the last several months, we register 4,500 unique fakes. And the main driver of growth is diffusion generative models, generative AI, and other means of generating content and distributing it online. We have already recorded more than 140 deepfakes from the start of this year, and the numbers have grown almost eightfold compared on the previous year. The dynamics overall is demonstrating that this content penetrates more and more the public information space. This content is more abundant, it's becoming more popular, and this mechanism of content generation is used in multi-stage fraudulent schemes and involvement of minors into destructive activity. Here are some examples. In social media, an acquaintance is established. Deepfake characters are generated representing either officers of the authorities or relatives. Their avatars are used to record video messages, to establish the content and using emotions and social engineering. This is done in order to lead children to a certain action. It's not always children are sometimes they would prevent. There is request for information and education and awareness and even enlightenment in the field of cybersecurity and media competency or literacy coming from the society. 43% of users look for this kind of information on their own in order to update their self-defense skills in the info space, and 58%, more than one half, are saying that they don't have enough information about how to protect themselves online. Either they can find this information or what they find is insufficient. But I think that this is the point of growth for all actors that are involved in this work. I have to stress that the fraudsters are not reinventing the wheel. Instead, they adapt the same schemes to different audiences. They use neural agents, neural networks and agents and AI to automatically generate and spread content, to communicate, to recruit into criminal activity. Together with the Department for to fight cybercrime of the Ministry of Internal Affairs in Russia, in March we organized a special session for the school children. There are lessons about things that are important, and during one such lesson, we studied a lot of relevant examples. Content is quite burden. Well, it's quite harsh. We we share the information of how children react once they learn that they have been manipulated. I mean, these lessons are important, but they must become systemic cyber literacy and certain level of protection is a never-ending story, because fraudsters adapt. We should also adapt. We should use educational content. We should use the same neural networks in order to generate positive content for education and outreach. And just to give you one example, recently we launched a basic fact-checking lesson. We used AI to translate this video into more than 50 languages. Translation is of high quality, and modern technologies allow to accelerate the process. It's not a very labor-intensive job. These are some rules that we try to impart onto children during lessons and educational content that we publish at our resources. But I believe that the most important thing for all users, and especially children, is the rule that any information online that causes you to feel emotions, especially negative emotions like fear or panic, is the first signal for you to stop to pause and to talk to someone you trust, like a teacher or some adult, to reflect upon this information, to look at it critically, to reflect upon it, to try to analyze it, to try to calm down and to take a critical perspective on this information. 99% of cases, involvement of teenagers into destructive activities usually based on intimidation or a promise of some financial benefit. In any case, this creates an emotional disbalance in the victim. People stop thinking rationally. Thank you very much. Thank you. And I would like to give the floor to Dmitry. Dmitry, telecom operators, how are they involved in forecasting digital risks? How can you respond to those risks? What are the protection tools that are at the disposal of a telecom operator? Okay, we have the picture on the slide. Okay, I'll try to answer this question. Everything that Sergey talked about, I can relate to, and I'm ready to subscribe to his statements regarding deepfakes and statements regarding the fact that using AI, not only cyber fraudsters perpetrate attacks, but we can also use AI to generate efficient means of protection. Let me cover this topic briefly. There are three approaches that Megaphone adheres to when it comes to children's cybersecurity. I will illustrate these ideas with some of our initiatives and research that we collected during our internal processes. Hopefully, this will give you some food for thought, maybe around new joint projects. There was a question on how to predict risks or forecast risks. The idea of risk projection is close to our hearts. More than a year ago at Megaphone, we started designing our own model to detect the so-called voice deepfakes. So it's been a year, and over that time, we see from the statistics globally around the world that the number of voice deepfake cases in messengers is growing at a rate of about 500%. Fraudsters master new technologies. That's one factor. And the other one is today only a 15-second recording of a voice is sufficient to generate quite a realistic deepfake. These services are available in the internet. You can test it in your free time, but do not use them for to commit crimes. And deepfakes, well, they can simulate voices of children or parents in order uh, to manipulate people. There are voice messages and video messages that we send using messengers. These bubble messages are recorded, or rather, they are encrypted using a different technology. They can leak, and this is how fraudsters get their hands on to a voice sample of my whatever mother, for instance, and 15 seconds sample is sufficient to simulate her voice. Now, recently we launched special technology at Megaphone that protects people from deep fakes inside a call. When there is an incoming call, the voice channel is analyzed, and a special AI model analyzes the speech of the caller to identify artifacts that can prove that most likely this is deepfake. I will not go into technical details of this technology, but as we speak, from daily statistics, we know that such deep fakes are already identified. We are only making first steps along this path. We know that this model is not perfect yet. It's not 100% efficient, but still it's our effort to counter this very important digital threat. And it took us about a year to produce this solution. The second approach is, again, I'm repeating things that have already been mentioned in other people's talks. If we want to be efficient in protecting children from fraudsters and other digital threats, we must use artificial intelligence because criminals themselves are not shy to use it. So internet can be both the shield and the sword um, targeting our children. When it comes to processing AI-generated information, well, and what do people think about robots analyzing their actual data? At Megaphone 6 months ago, we organized a poll, and I showed the slide at one of the conferences earlier. We asked the same question to the parents and to the children, and we asked them separately. What do you think if artificial intelligence will analyze the digital activity of your child or you if you are a child and notify parents if some digital risks are detected? So the question was quite straightforward. Artificial intelligence is not just reading you are everything that you are writing or sharing. It will also uh, be a whistleblower to the parents. About one half of the children are quite neutral. They think positively of this idea. It means that children are mature enough to understand that, and obviously, parents are even more supportive of this idea. So we should implement artificial intelligence to protect children, and children are not against the idea. And last things I wanted to bring up here, the third approach we are trying to implement when it comes to children's security, digital security and safety. We should listen not only to the opinion of the parents and our own opinion regarding serious digital threats for children, but we should also listen to the children. Here on the charts, you can see the differences in the ideas of children and parents about the most frequently encountered and the most dangerous digital threats targeting children. And we see the difference of opinion, and maybe we should listen to the children more. Probably they know better what kind of threats are aimed at them more frequently. Now, what's curious is that, for instance, gambling. Gambling is seen by children as more dangerous than what the parents perceive, and also involvement into drug dealing. Children think that it's a more realistic and more substantial threat than what our parents think. So we should listen to what the children are saying. We should use AI. And in terms of deepfakes detection, I'm sure that at Megaphone will learn how to do it very fast and do it efficiently. And we are open to cooperation. Thank you. Ilya, the new media, how can they prevent risks online, and should channels be prohibited from disseminating news containing destructive content? In 1974, 1874, Goethe publishes the Jan Werther sufferings. So the main character commits suicide, and this causes a wave of suicides among readers. 200 years since, David Phillips, a sociologist, introduced the notion of Werther's effect. 200 years since, he was talking about this those copycats, this effect of imitating. Teenagers love to imitate destructive content because they are prone to deviant behavior. And if we want to avoid and prevent new tragedies, we should never present in a positive light any negative information on the social media. We know that this is bread and butter of many information agencies, or rather Telegram channels. I've just been reading as I was traveling here. We know that in Burma, a terrible event happened today, and I've been reading the news, and I can see. I've been reading about the mechanics. We know what happened. So the uh, criminal came equipped with such and such tools, and this is what he did, and this is where he went. Well, I expect similar events in the next months to happen again, because mass media basically provides an instruction to those who are thinking about committing such a crime. Obviously, we can't prohibit the in news channels from informing people about what happened, but how can we prevent tragic consequences? Well, we can't prevent consequences. We should prevent the actual action. We should create closed chats for the teachers and for the parents who that are not discussing the news outside of those chats in 26, and in the future my task, just like the task of other media technologists and journalists, not to tell everyone everything, but uh, be mindful of the fact that some information can hurt the society. Why some channels spread the news in order to um, benefit from the hype? Well, good and bad, good and bad, good and evil. Those notions are not very clear in the minds of young people, of young generation, because for a long time, for several years, good and bad were replaced with uh, cool or not cool. If you're cool, if you're a celebrity, then that's good, period. So this is something that we should be keeping an eye on in terms of how the information is presented. How we, thank you. This is a very profound question. I hope I'll be on par. I'll try to explain how and what we are doing at our e-commerce sites, and what general principles are embedded into this process in e-commerce. Protecting children, just like all other users, is one of the priorities of our business. It's critical. We have a very wide audience, and obviously it attracts criminals that try to abuse people who come to our platform to find good deals. On the other hand, given that safety is our priority, has been one for many, many years, and we were able to gain experience in the area and achieve wonderful results. Well, it didn't happen overnight, but currently, if you look, say, back 5 years, we cut down the number of case abuse of abusive behavior on our platform. Um, 100 times, but we channeled our investment into this area. Specifically, we look at the adult and the young audience. We did a research together with the Alliance for Protection of Children, and it showed that about 30% of children have profiles or user accounts at e-commerce sites. The young generation is interested in using the capabilities of those platforms. We can't stop that. We can't prevent them from doing it. Instead, we should focus on protecting the children, and our platform, our product should have built-in protection mechanisms that would support the person throughout the usage scenario. And we should also invest into education, because education is the best prevention of various problems. When we ask parents as to who they believe should teach children rules of behavior and rules of safety, more than 80% say that it's the duty of every parent, but only 66% of the parents are actually doing something in order to teach their children the rules of safety. As to the skills that we would like to train in children so that they can use our platform in a more secure way, financial literacy is of utmost importance, and communication skills, negotiation skills, they're all basic skills that people can gain at e-commerce sites. Children need those skills, and we would like to assist them in the process of acquiring the skills. The digital dictation happened in December 2024, and we know that children audience is in the risk area, and our efforts to increase digital literacy should be aimed at them. So what we do at Avita, I think we said enough about threats, social engineering, phishing. It can all be found at e-commerce sites. And as it has already been noticed at the start of the discussion, user accounts rent is becoming very popular. This is a way for criminals to get access to a user account, basically. So what we are doing from the start of the year, if we take the first quarter of this year alone, we managed to reduce the number of cases when an account can be rented or would be rented by 30%. Of course, we will not stop at this level. Those people who rent out their accounts, they face certain responsibility, a certain liability. We also use AI and ML. We have many ML machine models that help us deal with threats. Over here it says 500 ML models, but they are the ones only in the anti-fraud area. If we expand the focus, like content checks or inflating reviews, we are using thousands of machine learning models that help us overcome external threats on a daily basis. As I was saying, our task is to ensure safe journey of the customer on the platform, to provide the customer with hints to safeguard the deals. And one of such safeguards is trusted profiles. There are certain checks that customers can use in order to verify their accounts. Right now, more than 8 million customers have already been verified. If you look at the contacts with the sellers on the platform, 72% of the contacts are between those who have verified their accounts. This number is growing, and we want to make sure that more and more contacts happen only between those customers who underwent this account verification check. A messenger in social engineering can be used in the platform's messenger. So it's really important to make these tools very safe. At Avida, we try to keep people inside the Avida platform. You can call people via the platform. You can send messages via the platform. We want to keep our customers safe from harm.
and we recommend that everyone stays within the safe perimeter where we can protect our customers. In addition to obvious tools that are well used in the pacified system, we also roll out the Safe Deal, a service that protects customers 100%. This is true for both goods, rent, services, and other categories. We try to find a way to provide alternative safe tools because we share the responsibility and we help our customers to ensure safety in the most lucrative deal. And the number of abuses goes down. Therefore, we try to focus on improving the service quality. There is naturally some progress that we've seen in this domain. We want our children to get in touch with high quality sellers or service providers who will ensure a fast deal. In addition to safe customer journey tools that we offer to the users as part of our scenario, we also run a number of educational and training programs and projects that we organize jointly with other counterparts. For instance, Olga and I discuss various initiatives all the time. Ultimately, they will help us cover the child target audience. We have special games that we have developed ourselves or in collaboration with other counterparts, such as the Federal Emergency Management Agency. With Lisa Alert, we're developing another game focusing on safety. We organize a number of events and run multiple training projects overlapping with those of the Ministry of Digital Development and other public agencies that help us educate the public. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'm grateful to every single panelist on this panel. And I really hope that viewers online and people in the audience will talk to their children about cybersecurity. I believe that a dialogue in a family is the most important thing. Once again, thank you so much and have a nice evening.